Hey, good evening. Hello, and welcome to The Unstoppable Singer. I am your host, Danielle Tucker. I'm a singer, a vocal coach, and a lead singer with the Mighty Untouchables band. The Unstoppable Singer is a live interview style show where we dive into the lives of real life professional singers who have achieved incredible feats in their careers. We explore the challenges and the triumphs that come with life under the bright lights, and we learn what being unstoppable truly means to them. So, if you're passionate about music and the stories of remarkable artists, then you're in the right place. Stick around because we're going to jump right into it. Without further ado, get ready to be captivated by the unstoppable talent of my guest tonight. Meet Meredith Pyle, the Los Angeles based professional singer, actor, teacher, and vocal contractor. With her vocal chameleon versatility, comedic tendencies, and strong musicianship, Meredith has taken the entertainment industry by storm. Born into a musical family in Houston, Texas, Meredith's passion for performance ignited at a young age. She honed her skills at Baylor University and Oklahoma City University, where she trained under the guidance of renowned voice teachers and starred in productions that earned her high praise from industry icons like Kristen Chenoweth and Kelly O'Hara. From New York City to the thriving scene of Los Angeles, Meredith has conquered stages and screens alike. Her powerful voice has been heard on The Ellen Show, NBC's The Real O'Neills, and even in commercials for major brands. She has lent her talents to blockbuster films like Disney's Frozen 2 and Mulan, and animated projects such as Super Mario Brothers and Minions. Not only does she excel as a singer, but she also embraces her role as a vocal contractor and a professional choral singer. She uses her voice as a vehicle for social justice with the award-winning ensemble Tonality, while also collaborating with prestigious institutions like the LA Master Chorale and the LA Phil. When she's not captivating audiences or sharing her expertise as an instructor of voice, Meredith loves exploring her culinary skills and embarking on exciting adventures with her husband, Ben. So prepare to be spellbound by the force that is Meredith Pyle. Let me bring her on. Hello, Meredith.
Hello. Thank you for that bio. And you have to send it to me later because you edited my bio and combined three bios. I think you went to my website. I'm I'm going to need that because that was really well done, Danielle.
You got
Bravo.
it. My pleasure.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm so happy to have you. And
Aw.
I could have gone on and on forever because you've had a really, really big career.
It's been
So
fun.
I
Yeah.
don't think we'll have any shortage of things to talk
Questions
about
and time.
tonight.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, aside from the bio, why don't you bring us up to speed and kind of give us a glimpse into what your career is like today, nowadays? What's the
Yeah.
day in the life like for Meredith Pyle?
Okay, a day in the life of Meredith Pyle is, recently, and I just announced this on social media, so I feel like I can say it here. I'm recently pregnant, so I'm in my
Yay!
second trimester. So, a lot of life right now just is about home and family. About 2 months ago, also, my husband and I bought our first house. So it's a lot of remodeling and figuring out what we want to do with our spaces and that kind of part of life. It's a lot of adulting right now.
Yes.
But it also has a great amount of teaching in it. As you mentioned, I've been a professor of voice at Pepperdine University, at the Harvard Westlake School, and recently at University of Southern California, Fight On. So it's been a huge part of my life in the last decade, and it's just evolving more and more every single year, every single day. It feels like I get new students and a lot of sweet students that are coming back to me that have maybe left, or I knew at a different point in their life, and now they're getting ready to go to Harvard, and they want to get in the a cappella group at Harvard, and
Wow.
so they want to start taking voice again after not having seen them in 3 or 4 years. So it's a lot of teaching. I love teaching. I think there's a little bit of sometimes a stigma with teaching, and people think like, oh, I'm going to do teaching because like I haven't been able to be a successful singer or performer,
Yeah.
or it's like a backup plan, or it's what you do to just pay the bills. And,
Mhm.
not to knock that, what you have to do as an artist to like make a living, and we all diversify our incomes in order to make it work.
Mhm.
For me, teaching isn't like that. This is something
Mhm.
I was called to do. This is something that is a huge part of my life, and I will do it, as long as I'm able.
Mhm.
It's a passion of mine. It's something I love, and I feel like I was literally put on this planet to perform and to be a teacher. So
Mm.
it's something I take very seriously, and I love doing it. And definitely, I split my time as being both a teacher and a performer. So
Mhm.
it's something I'm very proud of. But yeah, so then I do a lot of teaching. About 4 days a week, I'm teaching off and on throughout the day.
Mhm.
And then, I'm a performer as well. And thankfully, the positions that I have at these different schools are all part-time kind of positions. I don't have any full-time teaching positions, which has allowed me to have a lot of flexibility in my schedule,
Mhm.
which is amazing. And if you are a singer out there who's thinking about taking on teaching, but you still want to perform, know that that is a way of doing it, being an adjunct faculty member, or having your own private studio where your students really understand that you are also a performer. And that means that you may have to change your schedule occasionally to make that work. And so thankfully,
Mhm.
I've got great students who are always excited when I get cool jobs that come in, and
Yeah.
are flexible with me when those situations arise.
Right.
Yeah, it's been a balance of kind of family, teaching, and then singing and performing, whether that's in a choir or that's session singing or singing with my a cappella groups, no problem, or home recording. Yeah, all of the above.
My gosh. Well, congratulations on just
Thank you.
entering such a beautiful stage of life. My
Thank you.
gosh, just, starting a family and it changes everything,
Everything.
in
Yeah,
in
we'll see where I am next year.
yeah, it's oh my gosh, I'm very happy for you, and
Thank
I
you.
look forward to seeing, just how that, grows you as a person. You're
Yeah.
really in for a a treat going forward, a lot of
Yeah.
life growth, but, that's really beautiful.
Thank you.
And I love, how you've described just the variety that you have in your career and how that intersects with you as a teacher. And I love that you pointed out that there are in the teaching world, we definitely hear that a lot of like, well, I need a little extra something to to supplement my
Performing.
gigs and things like that. And
Yeah.
I don't see any problem with that because like we had talked about kind of before we came on live, everybody that I interview on this show, well over 75, close to 80 interviews now, always says like, "I've seen who you've had on the show, and I'm not really sure, what I have to offer." But without a doubt, every single person that's been on the program has had so much value to give,
Mm.
because everybody's journey is different. And I think that's incredible for you as a teacher to be able to give that gift to your students of having had such a diverse
Yeah,
career, and
right.
bring that into their lives. And I know that, also being a performing teacher myself, it's so great to be able to have that firsthand experience to share with them and really like be in those weeds with them, and I know
Yeah,
it's very inspiring for them too. So they're lucky to
yeah.
have you for sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Glad
Yeah,
to
I do. I think, I've had amazing teachers in my life that have all been performers, or at least,
Mhm,
at one time performed. And there's so much value in having a teacher who's not just has been a performer, but
mhm.
is performing and
Yes.
is currently in it, and has a tab on like, or a pulse on what is going on in our industry right now. And it
Mhm.
really does fluctuate so much, and
Right.
things really trend. They trend with performing, they trend with the shows that are out there. I
Mhm.
primarily teach musical theater. That's kind of like my master's degree is in musical theater. It's my first love, my biggest passion. I do a lot of other styles of singing, but I would say like that is what most students kind of come to me for.
Mm-hmm.
And my goodness, even from when I started teaching to where we are now, like the scope of what music theater sounds like and the demands of the singer that's doing music theater today
Yeah.
is tremendous. And I
Mm-hmm.
think there used to be a bit of a belief, especially in academia, that if you could sing classically, you could kind of do anything.
Mm-hmm.
That's certainly how I was kind of groomed when I was coming up in vocal performance degrees and singing degrees and stuff. And I don't agree. Like, I don't
Mm-hmm.
think that is true, especially not anymore for the music theater performing artist
Sure.
today.
Right.
So it's been a huge, like, both education for me as a performer, but also me as a teacher. Like, how do we adapt? And what have I had to do to adapt my voice that started in classical singing and then moved into more contemporary styles, and now obviously have to do so many different things with my voice, and like I said, like be a vocal chameleon constantly.
Mm-hmm.
What have I had to do to gain that knowledge and to feel things shift? And then how can I show those tools to my students?
Yeah.
I think that's kind of like where I feel like I am the biggest asset in an academic environment, is
Mm-hmm.
that I am in it. Like, I'm in it.
Yeah.
I'm watching, I'm feeling, I'm auditioning. I know what's on Broadway stages, and I know what sounds they're trying to make and what they're being asked to do in an audition room. And,
Mm-hmm.
we have to be able to make pedagogical choices so that our students are able to deliver in those situations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's such a wonderful thing to be able to offer. And I think in addition to that as well, we can almost serve as their first connection to the industry from a
Mm.
networking perspective, because I mean, there's nothing I think any of us want more than to be able to see the students actually do the
Work.
thing. And we all know that this business is about relationships and networking and
Yeah.
kind of cultivating community. And when we can take somebody who really has that potential and the drive to do it and just usher them through the door, I mean,
Oh.
that's extremely gratifying.
It really is. Yeah. Being, you mentioned that I do some vocal contracting now. I wouldn't consider myself a vocal contractor. I
Mhm.
feel like that's like too big to call me what I am. But what I am is I do favors. I do a
Yeah.
lot of favors for friends. I contracted a little bit for the Ellen show, and I recently am contracting a new project. And really, it's because people know that I know so many people and so many singers, both professionally, but also so many students,
Mhm.
so many kids that are coming through, especially like younger students that are coming up and are just super talented. And now it's like I get to be this middle person between being a teacher and then putting that right, correct student that's feeling like they're ready, getting
Mhm.
them or grooming them for being ready for these professional experiences, and then putting them in those situations where they're able to get that job. And
Yeah.
it's the coolest thing and so super rewarding. And
Yeah.
I'm always just like, yes,
Uh-huh.
that's my kiddo.
Yeah.
I get to be super proud mom, that like parent, stage mom a little
Yep.
bit with these kids that I've been with for so many years, and then are now booking work and getting solos and that kind of thing for really cool animated projects
Mhm.
and professional experiences. So it's super
Mm,
awesome.
I love that. I love
Mhm.
it. Well, as I mentioned in your bio, you grew up in a musical family,
I did.
starting in Houston, Texas.
Uh-huh.
Let's go all the way back there and talk
Okay.
about your beginnings in music and what got you started and what your musical journey has been like throughout your life.
Sure. So I'm from a large family, not just musical, but very, very large. My mom and dad are both one of five each, and then I'm one of seven children.
Wow.
So definitely kind of like Von Trapp family vibes there. A lot of singing together, a lot of growing up singing in church. And that was really kind of where everything began for me personally, was singing in big churches in Houston, and doing big Christmas pageants, and getting to be in these kind of theatrical productions. I think it was a fifth grader, I was in a Christmas pageant at my church, and we performed to 50,000 people. Like, it was like
Whoa.
a massive scale for a kid to be, and I was like kind of the child star of the show. So it was just, and I did the Macarena on stage just to really date me.
Nice.
But yeah, like I grew up singing in a musical family, and I had a lot of experience performing as a young kid. My mom and dad were both musicians. My dad played in the orchestra, sang in the choir. My mom was a voice teacher, choral teacher, and sang with the choir as well, and got her degree in music as well. So music was just a huge part of our household. My brother was always on the piano. He still plays piano. He actually has just got a full-time job as a pianist at Baylor University, our alma mater. So,
wow.
it's just, this is like my culture that I came out of. And it wasn't even an option kind of for me. It was just what we did sort of as Pyles. And that has continued throughout my life. Like, when I majored for college, it wasn't really a choice. Like, I just knew that I was going to be majoring in music. Like, I auditioned for the music program at my school. Like, that was going to be my path. That's always been what I've been best at. And I've always known that that would be what I would do. And so, whether that was being in a musical or singing in a choir or playing the piano or, singing solos at church and stuff like that, I was always involved in the performing arts throughout my entire life. I don't know. I'm so curious. Like, I kind of want to go back in time and like see what it would be like to just do something different.
Right.
Like, who would I be if like I didn't have musical parents and they were like, what do you want to do? And it's so, I'd be so curious to see what I ended up gravitating towards naturally had I not had that culture that I was in growing up all my life. So.
Yeah. Do you happen to recall as a kid what some of those things were that you dreamt of outside of the music arena?
Yes. I'm obsessed with horses. I still am. And I was going to be a cowgirl. And I still think I probably would be a cowgirl.
Okay.
I know, you probably didn't see that coming. But yeah, so on the other side, so my parents were both musical, and my mom kind of like escaped her culture slightly, even though we were, in Texas. We were kind of city folk for Houston. We lived in the country, but we would commute in like every single day of my life, about an hour every day. But about 5 minutes away from where I grew up was my grandfather's cattle ranch. So I have this whole other side of the family that's like very country and very, of the earth and of the land. And like my cousin runs the ag department at his high school, and my other cousin's like the football coach. And, so we have like this kind of small town roots kind of vibe and very Texan. And I grew up around horses and cattle and that culture. And I always was obsessed with horses. Like, I had horse flashcards where I would quiz myself on all the breeds, and I would have Breyer horses for any of you guys from the 90s. I would have like Barbie dolls, but they were horses basically. And so I would make like horse families, and I had a stable that I would like put them in, and like a fence. And so that was a huge part of my childhood. I loved horses all growing up, and I still fantasize about like, moving to Montana and owning a ranch and a horse, being able to go out on my horse every day. And
Yellowstone vibes.
For sure. I'm obsessed. Like, I'm obsessed with that show. And like, I've watched like all the other ones, like the 1800 one and the 1923 one. I'm like completely obsessed. Yes, I would live that life in a heart. I mean, even now, like, when's that day coming? Like, I'm ready,
Right.
So yeah, for sure. That would be what I would do if I went back in time.
That's awesome. I love that. Well, so going back still in time, you always knew singing music was in the cards for you, that it just wasn't an option. That was the game plan from day one. And you obviously moved forward guns blazing and just went right into the industry. Was there any point along the way, whether it was from a young age or college or whenever, that you considered stepping out of it, or maybe felt like this
Yeah.
wasn't the path for you?
Never in school, and
Mhm.
that's mostly because that would never have been allowed. I was such a good student and such a goody-goody growing up, but, I mean, I still am, but, you know, wow, I'm such a rebel now. No, I'm joking. But yeah, I that was never an option growing up, but, when I got out of school, actually,
Mhm.
I did kind of have a wavering moment, and, those closest to me know that when I graduated with my degree from Oklahoma City University, which was one of the best schools in the country for musical theater specifically, and to even get accepted into that program was like such a big deal. And then to
Mhm.
be like a star within that program where I was doing like, I was the leads of like every show while I was there, and having Kristen Chenoweth and Kelly O'Hara like kind of help me in the beginning of my journey to move to New York and to, get an agent and to start the path of a musical theater artist in New York, like to not do that was a huge deal. My
Mm.
entire alumni network are all in New York. Like they all went and did that basically.
Mhm.
Um, and I didn't.
Mhm.
I just didn't feel I went to New York for a showcase, like, your graduating class has like a showcase and you go and you perform for agents and managers. And I did that and I met with some agents and I knew I had a couple doors that I could maybe, walk into and get some opportunities, but I just never felt in my soul that it was the right place for me.
Mhm.
And I had a spinal fusion surgery. I was born with a disease called kyphosis, which is kind of like a cousin to scoliosis. It runs in
Mm.
my family. Several of my other siblings have had similar back surgeries as me. But anyway, I knew when I got there, I started doing the hustle. I would have my bag with the tap shoes and the leotard and the audition book
Mhm.
and hit the pavement and go to the auditions. And I was there for about 2 weeks right after showcase, maybe 3 weeks, and auditioning, getting callbacks, doing the whole hustle thing. And like around the 10th day or so, I like couldn't get out of bed. My
Mm.
back was just so tired. I was so physically exhausted and my body kind of rebelled against my brain and my heart.
Mhm.
And it was like I just couldn't do it. I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't do the commuting with everything on my spine and on my shoulders and stuff. And not having a car was really hard for me personally in that environment. And I
Mhm.
knew that if I moved there, I wouldn't be able to live in Manhattan. I would be living on the outskirts and doing the train and the walking from my apartment to the train station and really lugging everything of my daily life on my shoulders.
Mhm.
And for me, that was a bit of a wake up call. It was okay. This thing that I thought I would be doing in my life, I don't know if this is what God has for me. And
Mhm.
so I did a lot of like praying and deep internally thinking about what this means. And I went back to I did some summer stock that summer and did my musical theater kind of summer right after that. And I was supposed to go back to New York afterwards. But instead, right before that, right before I was supposed to move back to New York, I went to visit my sister who had actually randomly bought a like ranch in Montana. So I went
Wow.
to go visit her and I went and I was like just in the airplane, I was just, praying like, God, please just show me what I'm supposed to do next. Like let this time
Mhm.
where I'm in nature and like I just am in this incredible state and such beauty around me. Like let me just hear like a clear path for my life.
Mhm.
Because I was just at such a place where I didn't know what to do. And I remember like literally I can see it now. Like I was looking out the window and we were like landing and I'm seeing like the mountains and the Tetons, how it is there. It's so beautiful. But anyway, I see this vista and like we touch the ground and I'm praying and praying, like, just show me what I'm supposed to do. I get in the car with my sister and on the drive from the airport to her like home, she's like, so I'm moving to LA. I'm Montana's not working out. I'm moving to LA and I think you should come with me.
Wow.
in like 30 minutes after I landed. I'm not even kidding. It was like after I was like doing this prayer, like 30 minutes after
Mhm.
she said that to me. And that was a shock. Like she was living in Montana, you know, that was where I thought she wanted to like retire and have the rest of her life. And she was like, it's not working out. I'm moving. I'm going back to LA. I can't do my career here. And I think you should come with me.
Uh-huh.
And I knew in that moment, I was like, that is what I'm supposed to do. It's so weird, but I just knew it.
Yeah.
And I moved to Los Angeles, and nobody else in my graduating class did.
Mhm.
Nobody from OCU's music theater department did that. I was the first one that I knew, like from my generation, that did that. I really felt like I was embarking on a brand new journey for myself. And,
Mhm.
you know, I came out and I know I've kind of gone on a long tangent here, but I didn't do singing when I first moved here. I
Mm.
didn't do it. I kind of felt like it was a bit of a reset button, and
Mhm.
because it was also like not what we did
Yeah.
as OCU graduating class. Like you didn't go to LA, you went to New York, or
Mhm.
you know, you went to Chicago, or you went to maybe Dallas and did the music theater scene there. And the music theater scene in LA is just not what it is in those other cities. And I did do a few auditions when I first moved to town, but they kept me from the epicenter of LA. They like really took me out of town. There's
Mhm.
like, you know, Music Theater West. I like auditioned there. And then I did like a Sierra Repertory, I think, and that was going to take me up near Yosemite. And um, I was just like, I don't think that this is for me right now.
Mhm.
It didn't feel right in my gut in that moment.
Yeah.
So I pursued acting. My sister was an actress, and so I had a lot of just doors kind of opening because I was her sister. I took acting classes when I first moved to LA. I got an agent and a manager, and I started going out for acting. And I
Mhm.
have my SAG card because of acting, not because of singing.
Wow.
So my first session singing job, you know, I remember the contractor asked me, he was like, "Are you SAG?" And I was like, "Yep,"
Mhm.
because I had already been an actor.
Yeah.
You know, I had already been on TV and had a few lines and stuff from little tiny projects and stuff like that. So I'd done a couple commercials, that kind of thing. So my first really 3 or 4 years of Los Angeles was just the acting world. I
Mm.
was a celebrity assistant for 4 years when I first moved to town. So my sister's movie and my boss's movie were both nominated for Academy Awards the second month I moved to town. So I was going to all the award shows. Both my sister's movie and my boss swept the whole award circuit. They
Wow.
won everything, and they were like, "You're our lucky charm. You have to come with us to everything." I was like, "Okay." So, yeah, like I got to go to the Golden Globes, and yeah, it was just such an incredible dream, weird whirlwind first 6 months of Los Angeles. That
Yeah.
doesn't happen. Like anybody who's listening, that's like not very
Yeah.
normal.
Not typical.
And my sister was laughing because she's like, "You just moved here, and I'm having like the career moment of my life. Like this is insane." Like we were
Yeah.
getting to do all these fancy things and getting dressed, you know, to go on the red carpet and getting our hair and makeup done and just going party after party after party after party. And she was like, LA is not like this. Like you can't think that this is how it's going to be because it's
Right.
not. Like this is like the dream, and I cannot believe that you're getting this like the minute you move to
You
town.
just got the keys to the kingdom as soon as
Yes.
you rolled in.
Literally, like my first red carpet, I moved here August 26, 2011. Like our first red carpet was something like October or something.
Mhm.
And it was the premiere of her movie called The Artist. It was what ended up winning Best Picture that year.
Mhm.
And the premiere is kind of like before everything is growing. And we go and I went with her and we get our pictures taken on the red carpet and we're in like People magazine. She's like, I've never been in People magazine and your first red carpet and we're in People magazine. You know, it's like,
Yeah. Way to
this
pay
is
your dues,
crazy.
Meredith.
So I just took that as like, you know, how I was saying, like, I was just so prayerful about like, okay, show me what I'm supposed to do and where I'm
Mm.
supposed to be. And it was like, big giant sign, like, this is where
Yeah.
you're supposed to be, and this is what I have for you. And like, you will do well here, and you should definitely be in Los Angeles.
Wow.
And that's really kind of how it's felt. I mean, yes, there's ebbs and flows for
Mhm.
sure. But I've never doubted
Mhm.
that New York was not supposed to be my story, and that Los Angeles was supposed to be my path,
Mhm.
as a music theater artist, you know, in this world.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's kinda how it all started for me.
That's great. And when did singing come back into the picture
Yeah.
in the midst of all
Oh,
of
I'm
this?
not what? Yeah, the unstoppable singer. Um, so about my 3rd year, I was still personal assisting. About my 3rd year after moving to town, my sister hosted this thing called Broadway Bar, and it was at Rockwell Table and Stage, may they rest in peace.
Mm.
Um, and she hosted it with, one of their other co-hosts. She was like the guest host. She was like,
Mhm.
"You have to come. I'm gonna do this thing. It's the Broadway Bar. You have to be there." And so I came. I was just sitting in the audience, and at one point within the show, they asked people from the audience to come on stage.
Mhm.
And so, I reluctantly came up, and I'm there with, like, 25 other people, and they just do a pass the mic situation. So they
Mhm.
start like a music theater iconic song, and they start passing the mic, and it gets to me, and I obviously know a little bit about what I'm doing, having a degree in music theater, and then the host of the show afterwards was like, "You have to come back, and you have to be a soloist, and you have to sing here." And then the next time, I think it was like the second time I was there, and I don't know if you've interviewed him or not, but Greg Whipple was also one of the singers, and
Okay.
he was just fantastic. And uh, I was like, "Who are you, and what do you do? Like, I just think you're so great." And he's like, "Oh, I'm a session singer," and I was like, "What's that?"
Mhm. Mhm.
And he told me, he was like, um, if you're, he was like, "Do you sight read?" And I was like, "Yeah, really well." And he was like, "Oh, then you should really think about trying to do session singing while you're here in Los Angeles."
Mhm.
I was like, "Okay, so this is what the people do," you know? It was like my first introduction to this whole industry. He was
Right.
like, "You need to go take a lesson with Gerald White." And so I
Mhm.
did. And Gerald was like, "Oh, yeah, for sure. You've got what it takes." And so he kind of helped me form a demo reel, and he encouraged me to audition for the LA Master Chorale. So I did. And my first year, I became a supplemental singer for them. And I was like, "Oh, this is easy." And not even like understanding how big a deal that was,
Yeah.
to have, after my first audition, to be able to get into as a supplemental singer and get to perform in, Walt Disney Concert Hall with the LA Phil. Like, what a huge deal that was. And then, 7 years later, I'm still just on the auxiliary list, waiting one day. But
Mm.
I've had, just incredible experiences performing with them, and in the meantime, have continued to build, like, network and meet other session singers, and um, just try to be. This is kind of what I tell a lot of people that try to, like, take me to coffee and pick my brain
Pick
is,
your brain, yes.
yeah, it's you try to just be good in every situation that you're in, be a consummate professional
Mhm.
everywhere that you go,
Mhm.
and people will keep hiring you. And
Yeah.
then people will recommend you to other people that are hiring you. And then
Mhm.
those people will hire you for even better jobs,
Right.
And man, the amount of jobs that I've gotten because of a job that didn't pay me very well or wasn't like the flashiest job. Wow. I
Yeah.
could make a career out of just those opportunities,
Right.
like this was like last year, I did a live job, a live performing job. So it was not a union performance. It was just like a kind of one off, and not super high paying. But I decided to do it, and said yes graciously. Thank
Mhm.
you for the work. I showed up. I did my job, and I didn't really know the person next to me very well, but I got seated next to a big vocal contractor,
Mm.
and they were like, "Man, you're great. What are you doing in 2 days?" And then that opportunity, which was supposed to be just like, I was supposed to sing like a solo step out for this like bar scene for a movie musical, like that opportunity, the people in the booth like loved me and my performance so much that they ended up having me stay for like 3 more hours of the session to try other characters, and I ended up replacing another session singer for like one of the biggest characters of the show.
Wow.
And so it's just, it like, who knew that
Mhm.
me saying yes to that kind of like low paying live, concert job would lead to like me sitting next to this person that would lead to this opportunity where I just had to be good consistently in every
Mhm.
situation that I was in and try to be pleasant and humble and gracious and everything just kind of leads to the next thing.
Yeah.
You can't
Yeah.
really afford to not to have a bad day in this
Mm.
industry.
You can't. And how do you think you knew that? How do you think you knew how to conduct yourself in that way?
Parents?
Yeah.
I don't
Probably
know.
having musician parents,
I
probably.
mean,
Yeah.
probably. I think, I've had enough heartbreak to keep me humble, I
Mhm.
guess.
Mhm.
The story I didn't tell you was that even though I was this kind of like star of my graduating class at OCU,
Mhm.
um, which was a competitive environment, like unbelievably competitive, I still was like the leads of many of the shows. And people would tell me, oh, well, you're a shoe-in for the showcase. And it was an
Mhm.
auditioned group. Well, they brought in an outside agent and an outside manager from New York to come. And I don't know. I don't know what they didn't see in me, but I performed my pieces for the audition, and I didn't get picked for the showcase,
Mm.
which was like, it was what the whole culmination was for my entire educational experience. You go to
Right.
New York, you do the showcase, and you get agents and managers from that. And I didn't get picked. And it was
Mm.
a heartbreak. I didn't know it at the time, but I was the alternate. And then one of the people that was supposed to go ended up not graduating or something, didn't have the credit and wasn't allowed to do it. And I stepped in 2 weeks before, ended up kind of covering for that.
Wow.
And that's kind of been my story in a weird way. Like I've been like a replacement or a swing or a sub, and I come in and they know that I'm responsible and I'm a good learner and I can pick up music really quickly. And so I'll come in and do some things, on the fly, and then they end up really liking working with me and liking what I do. And then that ends up leading to something more substantial. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, I've had enough heartbreak, I think, that it keeps me grateful and
Mhm.
humble to be there
Yeah.
and not think that, I'm the best person in the room, and
Mhm.
understand that there are people that are so talented around me, and just staying super grateful and knowing that, we're athletes, and this thing that we do does have it has a bit of a timeline. And so, just soaking every moment up, um, while I can do it,
Yeah.
while I'm lucky enough to be in the room.
Yeah. Oh, I think your life is such a great example for the biggest lesson that I think anybody entering this business really needs to know is that it is all about how you show up and how people experience you as a singer and actor, professional in general. People get the work because people like working with them. That's who's going to
Mhm.
get the call 99 times out of 100, and treating every opportunity equally, the small ones and the big ones, because you never know. You
You
never
never
know.
know.
It's all about that impression, though, that you're leaving with those people who are going to mention to someone down the line, oh, I just worked with this girl Meredith on this, small little concert thing, but man, she was a superstar and she was, you know, a great human being, and you guys should check her out, use her. That's how these things work,
Completely.
and you've just got to let that be your way of being in the business, and, really cultivating that as just
That's what's
who
always
you
worked
are.
for me, is like
Mhm.
building relationships that are authentic, that are not forced, that don't feel, networky
Yeah.
and, I don't know,
Uh-huh.
charming them, but like in an inauthentic way.
Yeah.
Like just trying to find that balance between being proactive about your career, but also not pushy and not trying to maybe get in over your head and pay your dues. I think that's something that I'm seeing a little bit happen as I get more and more established, is like people that don't want to put in the time that it
Yes.
takes to really establish yourself in this industry and trust that those opportunities will start to manifest when you're ready for them, but
Mhm.
instead try to be opportunists, like try to force themselves to be in situations where they will be elevated into a position of power.
Yeah.
And then that position of power, like being maybe more than they can handle. And then, the repercussions that come from being in a situation where you're really not prepared.
Yeah.
I'm seeing that a lot. And I
Mhm.
think everybody's desperate, and the jobs are fewer and fewer, and the pay is the same, even though
Yeah.
everything else is more expensive. And I understand that. But for me, the guiding principle and value that has led me is just like, be a decent human being who wants what's best for everybody around them, and understanding that my time will come when it's ready.
Yeah.
And um, yeah, I do think that singers should advocate for themselves. Like, I mean, I guess if there's one thing that I want to talk about during this interview, is that in my wise old age, I have been in situations where I'm surrounded by young singers, and because I'm a teacher, I feel I have a lot of heart and empathy for these students that are just coming out of school, or just, maybe even still in school, and are getting some opportunities to kind of start their career, and
Mhm.
are often in situations where they're being taken advantage of.
Mm.
And that's not to say that you have to say only yes to the big jobs or anything. You still need to pay your dues, for sure.
Mhm.
But also understand that what you're doing, this service that we're doing, like, many of us have devoted our life and our craft and our funds and our education and our whole passion to this field. And
Mhm.
with that there's value in that. And we have the Writers Guild that's striking right now.
Mhm.
SAG-AFTRA is currently in negotiations. We don't know if we're going to be striking or not. We have these large union organizations that are there to protect artists, because artists don't protect artists.
Mm. Mhm.
Honestly, I
Yeah.
mean, alone, we feel very much like, I'm just grateful to be here. Thanks for paying me anything, and it's like, wait, hold on, hold on. I have a master's degree.
Right.
I've spent my entire life working on this field,
Yeah.
and what I have to offer is valuable.
Mhm.
And more than that, people are banking
Mhm.
off of my talent.
Mhm.
People are profiting off of what I bring to the table. My
Right.
level of professionalism, my, willingness to show up with my parts learned, even though,
Mhm.
it wasn't a requirement. Like, I put in that extra time, and with that, that should be valued. And so
Yes.
I just urge any of you young artists that are listening, like, listen to your gut. Yes, are there opportunities that you should do for free for at the beginning? Possibly.
Mhm.
Um, but know where those limits are, or give yourself some boundaries, because people will push them if
Mhm.
you let them. People will treat you the way that you let them treat you.
Yes.
And I
Mm.
I just keep getting kind of in these situations where I'm like the voice of the people, and I'm having to be like, wait, hold on, like, we're all getting mistreated here, and this isn't okay.
Yeah.
So advocate for yourself. What we do have is value, and it should be respected. And you will feel in your gut when it's not being respected, and when you feel like somebody else is getting what I'm putting out here.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm so glad that you
Join a
brought
union.
that up. That's such an important discussion that is more relevant right now than I think ever, especially coming out of COVID and what that did to our industry. And it is such a awkward space to be in right now, because I believe we are still in that um, place of feeling feast or famine, in a certain era of desperation, but also not physically or mentally being in the right space to take on too much, and so
Right.
it's just such a strange time, but really the point you're making about um knowing what your value is and what you bring to the table is so critical right now, and knowing how to convey that information to the people hiring you without it being weird, you know, and
Gosh,
kind of knowing
right?
how to make those judgment calls when it's not enough.
And that's kind of in line with what we were talking about earlier, why the relationships that you're making with the people that are next to you on the stand or on the risers, like,
Mhm.
that matters. It really matters because those are the people that are gonna stand with you and say, like, "This isn't okay,"
Yeah.
you know? It's
Mhm.
why, like, building community and relationship should be the forefront of your mind, not, "How
Mhm.
can I use these people to get where I wanna go?"
Yeah, definitely. Mm, I'm so glad you brought that up. So I want to talk for a minute about your teaching practice and what that
Mhm.
looks like, and what kind of students
Sure.
you're working with now, and how someone can reach out to you to potentially work with you.
Sure. My teaching practice looks like, right now I'm teaching at University of Southern California, and then maybe 1 to 2 days a week with the music theater majors there. And
Mhm.
then the other days of the week, I typically work with either privately at my home here
Mhm.
in Lake Balboa,
Mhm.
and working at Harvard Westlake School.
Mhm.
So that's a private school. There's like a high school and a lower school, and I typically work with the lower school. So if you're in seventh, eighth, or ninth grade and you're in choir, there's a good chance that I will be working with you.
Mhm.
So I'm the choral assistant, but I also teach voice lessons during the school day, which is really cool. So students can book with me during their breaks and stuff like that. Um, I've been there for almost 9 years, which is just crazy to think about. But yeah,
Mhm.
it's been a great, consistent place where I have a lot of wonderful colleagues. And then, yeah, I teach out of my home, especially during the summer. Like, I have a large studio that I work with privately. They
Mhm.
come to my home, or I meet with them virtually. So I have some students that I've never met before that are from all over the country.
Mhm.
Um, and I've never actually seen them in person, and yet we do great work online.
Yeah.
So the COVID experience has definitely changed everything in that regard, and I've learned the value of voice lessons, virtual voice lessons. You can kind of
Mhm.
study with anybody you want from anywhere in the country.
Mhm.
And all of my voice teachers and mentors are actually not in the LA anymore either. Like, my voice teachers are in New York mostly, and I have another voice teacher in San Francisco. But like, yeah, I've met with all of them only online. I've never
Yeah.
had a voice lesson with them in person, which is kind of
Yeah.
crazy.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's kind of my teaching studio right now. The kinds of students that I teach, man, it runs the gamut. I don't teach super littles anymore. My youngest student is, I think, 11 years old.
Mhm.
And I have two 11-year-old students, and both of them are professionals.
Mhm.
They're working professionals. They're singing for film and television, or they're in professional productions of musical theater, or pursuing a career in music very seriously,
Mhm.
or homeschooled and doing just constant auditioning.
Right.
um, and then I have some older students that are doing singing recreationally, that just want to sing and want to learn how to belt and want to learn how to do more contemporary styles, or something like that. Or they are in their community production and they're the star and they don't really know what they're doing, and please help me. you know
Mhm.
so I
Mhm.
have those kinds of students as well. And then I have the professional, my age almost, like coming out of school, like, or just came out of a program and had a mostly classical background and are now wanting to pursue session singing, now wanting to do more contemporary styles. I'm seeing that a lot. I'm seeing
Mhm.
that a lot,
Right.
which just makes me feel like, as somebody who works in academia, we are not doing our jobs, frankly.
Mhm.
It's something I've been really frustrated with, as somebody who has worked in academia for 8 years in a collegiate academic environment. I'm seeing music programs that are just refusing to change and adapt to what we see happening is trending in our country, which is
Right.
students that want to be able to do it all. Yes, there is value in studying classical music, but it is not the end all be all that it once was. And in fact, I would argue that most students graduating with a classical degree are not going to have a career in classical music. Like, it's actually pretty rare to make a living doing only classical singing.
Mm-hmm.
And there are way more opportunities for more contemporary styles. And in fact, contemporary singing pays way better than classical singing does. Like, if they were a pop
It
artist and made
does.
it big as a pop artist, like, my goodness, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
where the real money comes in. So if we're preparing people for careers in which they will be successful, you would think that we would be preparing them for these more contemporary styles. But
Mm-hmm.
for whatever reason, there's still a lot of tradition involved in academia and a lot of slow moving pace. A lot of teachers that just don't have a pulse on what's happening right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's affecting our students. And then they
Mm-hmm.
come to me when they graduate and they go, help.
Yeah.
Or I really wanted to do this like for 4 years and my teacher never let me.
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe that that's still happening. Like, it's crazy to me that that's still the story that I'm hearing in
Mm-hmm.
2023, when that was kind of my story in 2008.
Yeah.
It's nuts. So,
Yeah. It's a real thing. And I know I've spoken to many singers on here coming from the world of academia who say the same thing. And I think that we're very fortunate to have figures like yourself who are very active in Nats, the community of Nats, and
mhm,
that world that can be those advocates to kind of make those necessary changes and kind of be that voice, especially somebody like you who is living the profession every day
right.
and can see the incongruence of what's going on in school versus what's really happening on the streets, and
Completely.
yeah, bring those things to
Completely.
the forefront for sure.
Or just ignoring the fact that, like, this is what our students want,
Mhm.
right? And looking around and going, oh, our classical program, where we used to have 90% of the students performing or pursuing a degree in vocal performance or classical singing, we now have, and maybe 10% music theater or commercial music.
Mhm.
We're now seeing literally the opposite. We
Mhm.
have 90% of the incoming class that's a music theater major or a commercial music major. And these majors are booming.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, the classical incoming classes are getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And yet the teachers are still forcing classical curriculum. They're
Mhm.
still forcing students to sing using classical technique. And their belief is that if you can sing classical, you can sing anything. And I just don't believe that that is true.
Right.
And their technique hasn't necessarily shifted either. Right? The
Mhm.
students are still sounding like classical singers that are kind of like posing as music theater artists or pop artists,
Yes.
I hear that all the time, oh yeah, I did music theater in school. My classical teacher taught me how to sing music theater sometimes when I was allowed to,
Mhm.
and they just sound like they're a classical singer singing, you know.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, we could talk forever about that
Yeah, it's hard to
subject.
unring that bell for sure,
Yes, yes,
but it
yes,
can be done.
yeah.
Yeah, well, you're definitely doing great work in that space, and I definitely wanna acknowledge the efforts that you're making in that area.
Thank you.
And just to acknowledge who you are in the industry and the influence that you're having on the next generation of singers coming into the business. It's really a wonderful thing. We're extremely fortunate to have you in this space, and I am so
Thank
honored
you.
that you'd come on and talk with me tonight. And I want to give you just my one last final question, which
Sure.
is, what makes you unstoppable?
Hmm. I would say my creativity. And I don't know why that popped into my head,
Mhm.
because most of my life I grew up with the belief that I wasn't creative.
Mm,
It was something I was told pretty young,
mhm.
and I believed that for a long time. And as I've gotten older, I realize how unbelievably creative I am, just in a different kind of way.
Yeah.
I'm not artistically creative, very, like with drawing or art and visual art, but I'm a very creative problem solver.
Mm.
And I kind of love a challenge, and I love finding the solutions to problems and challenges. And so I think that, when I feel that pressure, when I feel that intensity, we're living in Los Angeles, it's a challenging place to live. It's very cutthroat. It's very competitive. And I'm constantly dealing with new hurdles, to try to survive here, frankly, and try to make a living here. And I think it's my creativity and my ability to adjust and pivot and try new things and put myself in new situations where I'm a little uncomfortable maybe, and find solutions to the problems. I think that's why I nothing has kept me down yet.
Yeah. I love that answer. That's amazing. I'm
Thank
so
you.
inspired by our conversation, Meredith. Again, thank you very much
You're so
for being
welcome.
here and taking the time to do this tonight. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
everybody who joined us live. Be sure to drop by and check out all things Meredith. What is your website?
So it's meredithpyle.com, and there's where you can see, all my professional performing experience, as well as all my teaching page where I break down my teaching philosophy and how you can book a lesson and stuff through the online Calendly app and all that.
Wonderful. Great. Well, we're going to give you back your night so you and Ben can go cook
Yes.
something up.
I already have. Can I tell you about my menu that I have planned for tonight?
Definitely.
Because we didn't even talk about cooking, but it's a huge passion of mine.
Part two. We need part two.
I love it. I know, right? But I'm making chicken Parmesan burgers. So it's like ground chicken, but like with mozzarella and marinara sauce. So I'm making that chicken Parmigiana, but on a burger form. And then I'm making homemade strawberry cobbler.
Ooh.
So I'm so excited.
Ooh, that sounds amazing. I'm making tacos. It's taco night.
Yes, I love it.
Awesome. Well, that sounds great.
Now that everybody's hungry, have a great night.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully you're documenting. I love it when you document your your food moments on Instagram.
I will do it for you. I know. My husband was like, enough. Okay, enough. Put that phone away. We're trying to eat a meal. And I'm like, it's for the people. It's for the
people need to see.
Yeah. Now I have an excuse. So yes.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Well, let's give you that night back and everybody else too. And I'll be back here next Wednesday with another great interview. But goodbye and good night for now.
Thanks.